This is a really quick video to just look at a couple of things which have come up in the lab that students have asked about. So here I have a selection of a few different common welding rods. So let's take a look at them. So over here, this one is, as you see on the side, this one says Wear Shield BU. This is a rod of something called hard facing, which is used for applying a very hard wear-resistant armor-like layer onto a base metal. Next to it, this one, as you can see the number, 6013, is a 6013 rod. The next one over here, look at the number. This is another 6013. You can see they are of slightly different colors. It's hard to see in the video, but they are slightly different. One's more gray, one's a little whiter. Okay. This one over here, look at the number. This one says Excalibur 7018. And the Excalibur is a trade name, but the real thing you need to see is the number 7018. Way down over here is a 6013 right there. Okay, there it is. Very tiny one here. Okay, so you have all these rods here. Okay, all different sizes, and you got to weld with them. And so, well, what do I use? What amperage do I use here? You know, what am I going to do? This may confront you, say, on a weld test, where they say, oh, here, you're using this thing. And you're like, well, okay, what do I do? Of course, in the lab, we use 7018s. They're 1/8 inch, and you'll be told, okay, you set to 125 amps, and there you go. Well, why do we use 125 amps? This is why. So I'm going to take my digital dial caliper here, and the base thing you want to use is this, okay? You base your amperage on a simple rule of thumb. Okay, we've had some of those things so far about bead size, okay? This one is on amperage, and you base it on 1 amp per thousandth of thickness, all right? So, taking this little tiny rod over here, let's see what we got. Okay, we got, say, 0635. You could round up to, say, 64, or this one says 64.5, so let's say 65 amps, okay? So you would then set your amperage to 65. Next one up, we have the 7018 over here. I got 97, 96.5, 97 or so. You'd set to that. Now, the 6013. 128, 129, 130, somewhere around there. This is the other 6013, same size about, 133 or so, same thing. Now, the wear shield, much thicker rod, okay, coming in at, let's say 160. Let's round it up to 160, okay? So, this is the way that you would set your welder, your welding machine, to the correct amperage for the rod you're using. So if you don't know this, you know, if it's not on the documentation, if somebody just hands it to you, this is what's in the shop, and you have different sizes you're using, how do you set the amperage? It's by measurement, okay? 1 amp per thousandth is going to be the ballpark estimation that you'll use for stick welding. Also very handy when it comes to TIG welding as well, where you're looking at the thickness of the material you're welding. This applies there too. Remember, we're melting metal, whether it's the electrode or the base metal that you're welding, okay? That base number of the thickness of the metal you're melting here and here, that's what you set your amperage to. That's why when you're welding, say it's a TIG welding, for example, your electrode should match the thickness of the metal that you're welding. That way those numbers are equal, okay? Very important. So if I take this thing, for instance, let's see if I can get the caliper in there. Well, not really. Doesn't go in there at all. Let's see on the very edge. Okay. Cannot get it in there. But I do know that this is a 1/16 of an inch thick. Okay. 1/8 inch is 0.125, which means 1/16 inch is 0.0625. So I would set my welder amperage for TIG welding to, let's say, you know, 62, 63, somewhere around there as a starting point. I'd of course vary it depending on what I see in front of me, but that's where I'd begin. So that's what I would do. So this calculation goes in for the welder and the base metal. Let's say, so if you're welding a 1/4 inch thick steel, then your thickness is a 1/4 inch, 250 thousandths. Therefore, your amperage required is 250. That'll let you know what kind of welder I need to weld this. If the job is you got to weld 1/4 inch steel, you need that amount of amps. Though, that's a single pass, okay? If you're running a multi-pass weld, of course, you can get away with far fewer because you're running multiple passes. I mean, I can weld 1/4 inch steel with my 110 MIG welder, and I think I'm only pumping out 88 amps right there. But I'm not doing a 1/4 inch in a single pass. I'm doing it in several passes. So that kind of gives you an idea, a mental picture of where to go. And I hope this helps. Then you can put this into practice in the lab and put this into practice at home if you're working on stuff. So it doesn't really matter what size weld rod you're given or what's laying around. Just measure it and there you go. You don't need to have the papers. You don't need to look up special tables. You just measure the stuff and then you'll have your answer. So I hope this helps everybody.